Speaker, and I rise to grieve on behalf of Victorians. Families shouldn't be separated from their loved ones. Small business owners and their staff need support. School kids need consistency at school, and we need to fix the state's mental health crisis today, not in a decade. Victorians need hope, and we know that we can do this together. That is why this side of the House have committed that we will end lockdowns in Victoria, and we've made that commitment going forward. We will let businesses get on with what they do best. That's employing people and rebuilding our state and ensuring our economy can grow. We want to see people back to work. When you walk around the city, and if you walk around the city today and go down any street, shop front after shop front has a for lease sign on it. There is simply too many shops with for lease signs, which means there's no employment in that place. There means there is no economic activity happening in those signs. That is stressful for those people that are no longer there. That is stressful for people walking around what used to be the world's most livable city. A state that was vibrant, a capital. We must have a vibrant capital to have a successful state. And we need to get people back into town. We need them to come back in, to shop, to experience the things that we had the pleasure, and I'm going to speak on behalf of most of us would have had the pleasure of walking down Burke Street to look at the Myer Christmas windows, come into the city to go to some of the amazing restaurants that are in town, to be involved and walk through Melbourne Square where you had the Christmas tree at an amazing time of year, and to see for lease signs and empty streets is something that's a huge concern. And that is why the Liberal and Nationals have committed, and we would love to see the government follow this up. Give us free public transport through this period. Let's get people back on trains and back into the city. Let's give people a reason to come into town and get Melbourne back to what it was. And I know that the member speaking after me, the Leader of Nationals, will, I'm assuming, going to talk a lot about regional Victoria as well. And I know that the Leader of the Nationals will also emphasise the fact you need a strong economy in the country to ensure Victoria survives.
We carry the city.
We also know that we need a vibrant city to ensure that our state is on the map.
Brighton, mate.
We've had some of the best events in Melbourne, and we want to make sure that our restaurants, our cafes, our retailers are back. And it's not just so we can have a name on the door, it's so people can proudly walk into the businesses that they've built up and know that they're going to make an income to support themselves and their families at home. It's so that they can make sure that they've got support, they're building jobs, they're making sure that Victoria's economy is doing what it should be doing. We need to reopen these businesses and we need to rebuild our economy. And what have we seen from the government when it comes to retailers? We've seen changes in the rules. They have consistently changed. The only thing consistent from the rules that have come through is they consistently change when they come out. And we've seen a change in relation to having to check for people who are double vaccinated and scanning in. Now, I am double vaccinated, proudly double vaccinated. I look at what's happening in New South Wales where they are looking to go and open the economy without the need for retailers to go and check, to take the pressure off retail staff members, having the pressure on them to check. These kids, in many occasions, and an email from a dad today down in my area with his daughter at Officeworks, was abused by a person due to the fact of having to check. Now, first of all, personal responsibility, we are the party of that. What a disgrace of the person coming in who abuses a 15-year-old girl when coming into a store because of conditions coming in. But I also put it the other way. How ordinary is it that we've now got conditions in place that a 15-year-old girl has to check medical records of a person walking into a store to come in and go shopping? How ordinary is it that we're putting pressure back on these kids to make the decisions that affect people's lives and what they can freely move around, and we're saying that's okay, they can then have put in the front line? And we're arguing the fact that needs to change. And I've said you've looked up at New South Wales, and we need to have a long-term plan to ensure that we don't have a two-tiered economy where some people are left not just out of the economy but left out of the community and society. And I think it's really important that when the government are going to make decisions, they don't blindside retailers like they did recently and made changes on the Thursday that came into effect on the Friday around who can and can't shop at different places. Or when you're talking about community sports, when we've been told that kids can come back to community sports and the regulations were written so poorly that when you turned 12, so you were 11 and 364 days, you could go and play basketball, but the next day you couldn't because you weren't double vaccinated. But you couldn't get double vaccinated before you're 12. So then they've extended that for 2 months, and we all know it can take longer with getting appointments for vaccinations. So we have to have a position where we can have kids playing sport, because the impact of that is going to be too much for too long. And the other thing about rebuilding Victoria is we know in my area, Casey Cadinia, the seat of Gembrook, we've got one of the fastest growing areas in the state, if not in the country, over the last decade. They have well and truly paid their taxes on every property they've purchased. First home buyers, investors, second home buyers, retirees. Every person that buys a new home is putting money back into the Victorian economy. And we've seen in that time the level of money going through the Victorian government from house constructions and stamp duty is what's holding up their budget. And what have we seen as a result now? The government has now introduced a new tax on family homes. They try and sell as a new tax on developers with their land windfall tax. I know for a fact any person in business, when I owned a bakery, when the flour went up because the wheat on the market was at fluctuating prices, the bread price went up because that cost has to be recouped. And at the end of the day, it's the final purchase on every item that pays the increases as they go through. Our family homes, when you are building a home, are nearly 40% government tax. We don't need more taxes on them. We want to make sure that we can get our economy going in those areas. We want to see those houses continuing to build. And why? Because I know the people I speak to are inspirational. They want to have their own home. We used to talk about the quarter-acre block. We used to talk about the white picket fence. And the reality, things have changed. We now talk about a 500 square metre block. Some of them are smaller, but it's their own piece of dirt. It's their own land that they can build a house on, which becomes their home. That home is where they're going to raise their kids. They get involved in the local community. They put money back into the local economy. They create jobs. Building the house creates jobs. They go to the local schools. They build the local sports clubs. That's what community's about. And all this government has done is try to stymie that and put another massive tax onto developers, which will be passed on. And because of taxes like this, and because of the changes and the bureaucracy that our developers have to go through to get a construction now on land and to develop land, it is delaying properties by, I would love to say months, but it's now years. So every year, a block of land doesn't go on the market at the moment. It's going up 12 to 15% minimum. And again, Speaker, I say, who's paying it? Now, my daughters are 15, nearly 18, not looking forward to that one, but nearly 18. We'll keep her at 17 for as long as we can. But they're the ones that are the next generation that won't be able to afford to get into the housing market. How does the next generation go into the housing market when the government's taxing them out? And that is going to make a massive, and get rid of capital gains tax. So then what we do is we can put all those houses back on the market, is that right? And have no rental markets. And wait till I get to the next part about that, but thank you for the invite for it. But the state government here want to talk about that. If you want to get rid of it, get rid of the land windfall tax you've just introduced. Let developers start to develop the properties and get the market onto the market as quick as we can, because supply and demand is one of the biggest issues. We want to make sure that there is certainty in those properties. And I'll quickly touch on in relation to, and I know this one came here, the Department of Families and Fairness Housing annual report showed that we've had a blowout of 25%, which has steadily increased from 2017 from 10 months to over a year. These are people that are waiting for homes. These are people that need support from government. The social housing. And what we've seen is the government are coming out with their big figures they like to talk about in media releases, but the annual reports are showing more people are waiting for properties to move into, and the waiting lists are getting bigger and longer. This government has ignored them for so long. For nearly 20 years, the Victorian Labor Party has been in government, and social housing lists in that time have increased almost year on year. And if you want to fix some of the issues with the social housing crisis, start to get houses back on the market at affordable prices. And if we get them on affordable prices, we can then start to get them back into the rental market, and the rental market will change with more houses on the rental market. And you may find all of a sudden your list will decline because people will have opportunity in the rental market as well. And I note I said the leader of the Nationals Party will most likely speak about the issue in relation to crates. And I went out to Shep. Pallets. I went out to, and it is crates because Shep have crates as well, but it's pallets. And I went out to Shep out in Dandenong, and I spoke to a few of the staff, and we had a Zoom meeting, and it was quite interesting in the discussion. We were talking about some of the issues that I know that the leader of the Nationals has raised around the shortages. But one of the things that I spoke to him about was mental health. And why mental health with them? Because they were finding it challenging when they were waking up in the morning and coming into work, and on the computer through emails was an order for about 90 or 100,000 pallets through certain areas, so different people with different amounts ranging from small to exceptionally large. And when you had to ring up a company and go, I know you ordered 10,000, but we can only send 750. And that organisation then goes, well, hold on, but if I've got 750, I can't send anything out. It's a waste of time. We need to have our 10,000. That's what we've got to supply to market. That's our orders. And they go, yeah, but we just genuinely can't. And the frustrations, the anger that's then in a phone call, and the staff, the pressure on the staff is astronomical. And I know we're speaking about staff that could lose their jobs coming up to Christmas, and that is the worst outcome. But these people that I've spoken to, who have been locked down for a long period of time, working from home, haven't had the other normal support networks. And Speaker, I'll say it, most people have that support network in the workplace. We used to be having a drink at the water tower. It could be anything, going for a beer after work. All those things haven't been there for that 2-year period. But the pressure has increased. The pressure has gone to a stage inside those places that the staff are feeling it, and they are genuinely concerned. They genuinely feel that pressure every day at home, and they can't get away from work. And they know that tomorrow morning they're going to have to wake up with exactly the same message. And what annoys me the most on it is the government are making up excuse after excuse and finding anyone to blame. And I'll leave it to the Leader of the Nationals on this one, but the government have to take responsibility on this. They have to take responsibility on this. And I know he spoke about Christmas with no beer and no chocolate, and I'm lucky I brew my own beer at home. But you can't imagine having it. I'd need less chocolate. But what we do need to make sure, we talk about chocolate and beer, but it's fruit and veggies. It's Christmas puddings. It's Christmas gifts. It's pharmaceuticals. It's everything. And one of the other issues that hasn't been raised is the number of crates that are going, pallets that are going up to New South Wales that don't come back because of the way they're doing with their transport, and we can't get them back and they're using them up there. That's because we can't have the normal replacement that we have down here. It's too important for us not to be involved in these discussions. It's too important for us not to be working on a plan to rebuild Victoria. It's too important for us to ignore what's going on, because we know that Victoria is mostly open and we love seeing some at the shops, restaurants, cafes, bars. But we are a long way from the Victoria and Melbourne we all love and we are all proud of. The place that used to be the first choice to live, and today nearly 50,000 people have opted to relocate north because they don't trust this government to recover and rebuild our economy and to make sure Victoria is the best place it can be. The Liberal and National parties are listening, acting and preparing to take on the task to rebuild our state. We can't do it alone. We will bring along Victorians, that will take them along for a journey, and we will work with them, because the industry, the organisations that make Victoria great, all want to work with the government to ensure that there is jobs here and that we encourage the biggest and best investments to Victoria. And no government can do it alone, and that's why we will commit to working with every organisation we can.